This is I'm Stuck, and today we are starting off a 6-episode series all about the war in Vietnam. So first of all, this first episode will be about how the Vietnam War started. And to learn more about this, we have to go all the way back to the Second World War in 1940. Now, in 1940, France had a vast overseas empire, and this included Vietnam, which was known as French Indochina. However, in 1940, France fell to the German army, so this meant that it was impossible for France to protect this empire. So some Vietnamese saw this as a chance to gain independence for Vietnam. However, this was not the case, as it was the Japanese, who were of course an ally of Germany, who took the real control of Vietnam in 1941. However, they did allow the French government to remain. However, the Japanese were only interested in Vietnam because they were a solid provider of essentials such as coal, rubber and rice, and this would help them for the war. So this meant that they didn't really care about the welfare of Vietnam, and they were so brutal that a famine in Vietnam actually killed around 2 million people. So the only resistance to French and Japanese rule was the Viet Minh, and this group was formed in 1941 by Ho Chi Minh. And he wanted independence and freedom from the foreign rule. Now he did a campaign of guerrilla warfare against the French and Japanese. Now the support for this grew rapidly, and lots of the villages also like this. Even the USA supported the Viet Minh, and they provided weapons and supplies in return for the attacks on the Japanese army. Now, of course, near the end of World War II, if you watched my significant battles video, then you will know about the fact about Pearl Harbor, and this obviously aggravated the US. And in 1945, they dropped atomic bombs on Japan. Now, after this, Japan couldn't keep. They surrendered, and they withdrew from Vietnam. So the key question that was faced with was who would replace them. Would it be France or the Viet Minh? Now, so in September 1945, the Viet Minh decided to enter Hanoi, which is the capital of North Vietnam, and they declared independent. They expected the USA to support them. However, the US did not support Ho Chi Minh, and they actually supported the French when they returned in 1946. So Ho Chi Minh actually negotiated with the French in 1946 and allowed 25,000 French troops to return in exchange for a 5-year plan which would lead to independence for Vietnam. So that is the start of it. However, we still haven't got to why the Vietnam War actually started. So that is why we need to start going into the Cold War. Now, if you don't know much about the Cold War, then you should watch my Cold War video. Now, the Cold War was basically, in short, all about Russia against America and capitalism against communism. And in short, the Vietnam War started because the US was trying to prevent the spread of communism throughout the world. So the Soviet Union were a major superpower with a strong influence over Eastern European, including Bulgaria, East Germany, and China was starting to also become communist in 1949, and they became a communist country. So this meant that the US did not want Vietnam to also fall to the domino theory, they called it. Didn't want Vietnam to also fall to communism. So this meant that they were going to support the South Vietnamese because North Vietnamese was already communist. Because Vietnam was a French colony from mid-19th century until 1954, where they signed a treaty at Geneva Conference, which temporarily separated the North communists from the South anti-communists at the 17th parallel. And this was after the French were defeated at Dien Bien Phu. So the French had lost control. Vietnam had gained independence, yet the north of it was communist and the south was capitalist, which the Americans liked. So the Americans were trying to help now the South Vietnamese keep their capitalism, as they didn't want them to fall under communists, as that's what they expected to happen. Now this is why they entered it and started to spend a lot of money trying to get away the Viet Cong, who I will talk about in the next video, and their tactics. So that is basically the reason why the Vietnamese War started, and this is what created this chaos for the next years, in which many people were killed, and there was many questions that people were starting to ask in America in this media war, which I will talk about. So thank you for watching this video. My next video will all be about the Viet Cong tactics and how they went about the war. But for now, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.